I know when we normally talk about Fetter work, people don't really talk about rites and rituals. It's not really prioritized, and it's sort of as something that just falls by itself. Um, I think it's very very important to talk about, and that's why I'm gonna spend a lot of time talking about this. Because if you really think about it, um, how much identification in your life is happening in your everyday routines? And I know that this is the feta about the unskillful routines and the harmful routines, and we are going to talk about those as well. But just think about your morning when you wake up. Do you have a cup of coffee? You might say yes, every single morning. Lots of identification in that. Or you might say, no, no, I don't like coffee. Really? Lots of identification in that. And that's just about the coffee. How you bought the coffee, if you looked into if it was, organic or non-organic, if it was fair trade, all of that is part of your identification. It's part of the way that you are in the world. So this is a huge topic, and we're going to talk about things that are really, really uncomfortable to talk about. And I know that it might not seem possible after we've been through the toxic starting point and we've been through the fear, anger, guilt, and shame, and all of that. It might seem completely impossible that there can be more that's like super uncomfortable to talk about. But if you look at it, the first fetter is about identification with thought. That's when you realize you can't have a single thought that is truth. All your identification, all your believing in an I can only happen via thought. If you do not attach any thought to anything and you're just in your direct experience, there's no thought attached to it. But very, very quickly, when you sit in your direct experience, you have found that that thought comes right away. And a lot of distraction is happening by thought all the time. In the second fetter, we talked about the identification with feelings and the identification with emotions. And the first and the second are tied together, since when you're sitting in your direct experience and you just are sitting with what is, and you're sitting with that pure being, any thought that comes up that your mind grabs hold on is a thought that is charged. Because if you've probably already done it, because I talked about it in the last lesson, backing up a bit and looking at the thoughts before they choose their direction. Because you have like millions of thoughts happening, just like you have millions of things you can smell right now, and millions of things you can hear right now, millions of things you can see right now. But the mind is selecting one of those avenues, and it selects the avenue that gives the most entertainment, the most drama, that is feeding the ego the most. So when you sit and you back up, you can see that, oh my goodness, there's like this avenue of thoughts happening. I could have picked any one of those. I picked that one. And that one is the one that is giving me a sensation of fear, anger, guilt, or shame, or it's reminding me of a past experience. It's reminding me about something that I need to do in the future. It's taking me away from my direct experience, from what is happening right now. And what we talked about in the second fetter is that the topic that the thought is taking you away from has a purpose. It has a meaning, and there is in that, because of your bubble of reality, in that there's there are a lot of clues hidden to you. And if you can pull yourself up and just observe what is happening, so you don't identify with the thought, as we talked about in the first, and you don't identify with the feeling or the emotion coming up, you just observe what is happening, then you actually get a very, very clear insight to what your identification is about, who you identify as, and what has a meaning in your life. And a lot of that is super, super heavy, and it's really, really painful. The mind makes you believe that it's really painful to look at. So what we do is that we create a lot of distractions and a lot of diversions. You have probably experienced that either with yourself, with thoughts coming up that you really want to look at this, you really, really want to work with this. And then you get an idea, a thought about, oh, tomorrow, actually, when I do the grocery, I need to remember completely different thing that has nothing to do with what is the most important thing for you to look at or to be with or create space for. And that diversion, that distraction that is happening, that's the third fetter. So the third fetter is about all the diversions and all the distractions that we create in our lives, so we do not look through the identification with thought, and we still maintain believing the identification with feeling and emotion. And that's why, in my opinion, the third fetter is very, very important to look at. And there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot.